Joining us now from Jerusalem is Cmit Segel. He's an Israeli journalist and author of It's Noon in Israel, a newsletter that goes out every morning. Cmit, it's good to see you. Welcome back to the program. So this all comes with reports that there may be discussions between Israeli officials happening as soon as today and Lebanese officials in Washington, D.C. for some sort of ceasefire. And yesterday we heard Vice President Vance say that Israel, quote, offered to check themselves a little bit to help these negotiations succeed in Islamabad. But are they really checking themselves? Is Prime Minister really checking himself, or is he looking for a way to make this ceasefire negotiation fail? And if it is the latter, Cmit, does that not put him squarely at odds with the President of the United States?
Well, President Trump kept saying over the last 24 hours that the ceasefire does not include Lebanon. I think the target of the goal of the Israeli government is not to break the ceasefire, but to break Hezbollah. On day 2 or day 3 of this current Epic Fury operation, Hezbollah started firing at Israel. That's the reason for the Israeli forces to actually enter Lebanon. That's the only way. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. And that's why Israel is actually, or Israel kept demanding that the ceasefire would not include Lebanon. By the way, I think it's a strategic event. I know Lebanon is quite a marginal spot on the map of the Middle East for the most Americans, but it's very, very important, even crucial, because strategy of the Iranian regime has been for the last 47 years not to fight directly with Israel, but to have the army of proxies attacking Israel. Now, if they are to give up Hezbollah, their most significant proxy left to be fought by Israel, as if, the US would have signed a peace agreement or a ceasefire agreement with Iran, thus letting them to attack Israel. How would we look at this? I think it's dramatic, and that's exactly the reason why Israel should insist, and the entire world should insist on Hezbollah dismantling itself.
Cmit, right after this temporary ceasefire fell into place, it's obviously very fragile right now, but right after it fell into place, we saw Israel really step up its attacks in southern Lebanon, basically unleashing one of the largest amount of bombs on Hezbollah, striking legitimate Hezbollah command centers. And obviously, from Israel's perspective, they are trying to ensure that northern Israel remains safe. That is why they're targeting Hezbollah. But just in terms of international optics, the visible result has, of course, been hundreds of people killed. It has been over 1 million Lebanese people displaced. You're seeing hospitals running out of supplies. So obviously there has been so much pressure from the international community, and obviously now a little bit more pressure from the Americans. They really want to make sure that this ceasefire with Iran actually holds. Obviously there's economic pressures on that front. But how concerned is Israel that the US is going to make some kind of a deal with Iran that does not address Israel's security concerns as well?
I think that's the reason why Prime Minister Netanyahu has just announced that he is willing to directly negotiate with Lebanon, a step that hasn't happened since 1948, and not because of Israel, 1949, I think. The main reason for the casualties on the Lebanese side is because Hezbollah tried to hide as a conclusion of the 2024 war between Lebanon and Israel, to actually hide its headquarters, not in Shiite centers, but in Druze neighborhoods and Christian neighborhoods, with other neighbors knowing about it. However, I think the lion's share of casualties is Hezbollah commanders themselves. 220 Hezbollah commanders died yesterday in the Israeli attack. So the collateral damage, while tragic, of course, is first and foremost the reason emanates from the decision of Hezbollah to hide behind the civilian population. That's the main thing. However, I think President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu are on the same page when it comes to Hezbollah. And we have to bear in mind something which is very important. Even if Israel actually stops firing at Hezbollah, it's because Hezbollah had pledged to stop firing at Israel in the first place. And at the very same spot, Israel is still behind the Litani River, which means that unless Hezbollah is dismantled, Israel will have to actually make sure that its citizens are safe and are protected from from borders that can be protected from.
Amit, I know you follow U.S. politics and news very closely, and you're aware that there is a growing perception that Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu specifically dragged or convinced President Trump to launch this war in Iran, and that was only exacerbated by reports this week, very detailed reports in the New York Times that Prime Minister Netanyahu oversold the likelihood of, within the first few weeks of this war, toppling the regime, eliminating Iran's nuclear program, and ending its ability to threaten its neighbors. Even former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has said that the war's objectives have not been achieved. If the White House feels ultimately that they were sold a false bill of goods here, how much damage, short and long term, will that inflict upon Israel's relationship with Washington?
Personally, I'm not worried about this administration being detached from Israel or disillusioned. I think no one has dragged President Trump to anything since I don't know, second grade in elementary school. However, did President Trump think that Iran was a low-hanging fruit? It's a possibility. Is it harder than expected? It's possible. Is it too early to say whether it's a success, a total victory, a victory, or something or something less than this? Absolutely. And that's why I have to admit I'm quite worried about the standing of Israel, especially within the Republican Party. The Democratic Party, as far as I understand, is a lost case for the next 3, 4, 5 years. But it's too early to say. I mean, we're still. Let's go to the drawing board. After the first week, when Israelis and Americans have already been disillusioned from the image of the Iranian regime being toppled by its protesters in the middle of the war, the ultimate scenario was as follows: a unilateral ceasefire respected by Iran, the Hormuz Straits are open, and the U.S. forces are still in the neighborhood in order to make sure that protesters know that they are not alone. This is, give or take, what we have. So I think it's too early to call and too close to call the outcome of this war.
Yeah, as we know, the Strait of Hormuz is anything but officially open, though, at this point. I think only 4 vessels were allowed to pass just yesterday. Amit Segel, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.